The Madman! Welcome to Trump Reviews, Knights of the Frozen Throne. These reviews are done 3 months in. This one is 1 month in. The meta is not anywhere near settled in. There are some decks that are still developing, so it's hard to peg exactly where they stand in the meta, but we're going to take our best guess for the most part. This also means you can look forward to a Trump Reviews in 2 months. I never thought I would actually do it, but it makes sense to reevaluate some of the cards, given what the patch will change, and the patch will change a lot, so even these reviews could be wrong. Druid of the Swarm. Token Druid will probably pick this up because the 2-mana 1/5 taunt protects your Vicious Fledgling on turn 3. It's a beast, and it's a really tough target, so it's a great target for Mark of Yasharaj. So I rate this card 4 stars because I think Token Druid will be about a tier 2 deck. So it turns out that Token Druid seems to be a tier 1 deck. This card is a 5-star card. Now, moving forward, I believe this deck will still be a tier 1 deck even with Innervate gone. So I'm going to rate it 5 stars yet again. Crypt Lord has a lot of health for being a 3-mana taunt, and it seems best suited towards Token Druid yet again. So I'm rating this card 3 stars. I'm less certain that this card will be a mainstay in Token Druid than I am Druid of the Swarm. Tar Creeper will often come out ahead because of its defensive 3-attack power. So Crypt Lord turns out to also be a 5-star card. It has ousted Tar Creeper in nearly all of the decks. That's because the health gain is pretty significant. Also, Token Druid even sometimes techs in Crazed Alchemist in order to turn that into a really big card. Moving forward, for Token Druid, since I think Token Druid will still be a tier 1 deck, I still rate it 5 stars. Nash is a 1-star card because it's really terrible. Nash was 1 star, still 1 star as my prediction. Bite sees no play, Claw also sees no play. It's really bad. Strong Shell Scavenger, 1-star card. In order for this card to get more value than it's worth, you would need to hit like 2 minions with it. Strong Shell Scavenger. In reality, given the meta, it's a 3-star card. Now, I do believe that if the meta were to continue moving forward with no changes, this deck would be outclassed by both Token Druid and by jnZaneHD, and it would see its rating cut down to a 2-star card. Already we see that this deck is phasing out of existence, and I think if we were doing this review another month from now, we would be rating it 2 stars. But for now, objectively, at its current state, I think it's a tier 3 deck, and therefore I give it a 3-star rating. Moving forward, I think that this card is going to be a 2-star card, namely that it will be tried out and then it will be phased out. Fate Spinner! I rate it 1 star. Even though it is AoE for Druid and it's tough for Druid to get AoE, they could always run Abomination. Yep, this was a 1-star card, and I don't see any reason that it'll change. Still a 1-star card. Webweave, I rate 1 star. There was the developer comment where it used to be 4 mana. Well, turns out this card isn't 4 mana, it's actually 5 mana. Didn't see any play. It's 1 star, and it will still be 1 star. Raising it by 1 mana turns out to make it significantly less insane and probably too costly to play. Spreading Plague, I rate 4 stars. Druid always plays from behind. If you manage to summon 2 scarabs, it's decent value. Summoning 3 scarabs is insane value, and I think that summoning at least 3 scarabs should be fairly easy to do. I originally had this at 5 stars, and I'm actually one of the people who rated this highest, but I still didn't rate it high enough. It is actually a 5-star card, one of the cards that is a big problem for jnZaneHD because it is so powerful. New Spreading Plague not only costs 1 mana more, but I believe that the metagame will turn into a more control-heavy metagame, considering all the aggro decks are hit by something. So there will be less targets for Spreading Plague. So therefore, it's going to come in and out. So I think it will be a 3-star card this time around. Now, Fury and the Pestilent, I rate 5 stars, one of the strongest Death Knight cards. Yes, this is a 5-star card. It's costed really efficiently. In fact, since Spreading Plague is getting nerfed into 6 mana, Malfurion the Pestilent looks even better. So really good card. It should still be 5 stars moving forward. Hadronox! Hadronox I rate 1 star because even though summoning all your taunt minions is really strong, it is dreadfully slow to play. 1-star card, and moving forward will still be 1 star. And finally, the big granddaddy of all value spells. Welcome to Valley Town. Ultimate Infestation, 5 stars. My proudest card reveal of all time. 10 mana, win the game? Not quite that simple, but it feels like
it was that simple.
I think.
Other people who rated this weren't entirely sure. Do you put 1 copy? Do you put 2 copies? I was all on board on the 2 copy. The card's insane train. And it turns out it is insane. It was 5 stars. The card will continue to be 5 stars.
Overall, it looks like Druids are getting some very exciting control tools as well as aggro tools.
Druid was pretty
now
good.
Hunters. We start with this awesome puppy. He is playing dead, even though he is completely seemingly alive, but he's actually undead. Haha, and he's 1 stars. Turns out that this card doesn't really do much right now.
Play Dead didn't end up seeing play. It still won't see play for the remainder of this expansion, I'd say, and I'll give it 1 star.
But given the right death rattle minion that comes around with some very high value, I can see Play Dead being good. Venom Strike Trap gets 1 star. It's very comparable to Snake Trap. Snake Trap doesn't see play.
Didn't see play, 1 star. Still won't see play, 1 star.
Toxic Arrow gets a 1 star. And also, I'd like to shoot a Toxic Arrow at the Blizzard development person who decided that this card was strong enough to print.
Yep, still 1 star. In fact, it was so weak that a lot of memes were made from it.
The bad news is, they would become poisonous, and when they attacked me, I would die. Stitch Tracker is a 1 star card. I had to actually look around and see if I could build a Control Hunter deck, or even a heavier mid-range hunter deck, but I failed.
Alright, we're gonna call this one a 3-star card. So this is part of the problem with doing the card ratings this early. I have to do a little bit of extrapolation. Hunter is not that popular right now, but recently a top hunter deck was formulated, and it does have Stitch Tracker in it, as in someone actually hit Legend Rank 1 with Hunter. I think moving forward that this card will still be a 3-star card, because I'm not entirely sure that it will see play in every single one of these Hunter decks. I think Hunter will get more powerful because it didn't get hit by any of the nerfs, and if it was already powerful enough to hit Rank 1 Legend in this meta, then what's stopping it? It could actually be more powerful than even 3 stars. It's possible.
Bear Shark, as awesome as you are, you get a 1 star. The 3 mana slot for Hunter is very oversaturated. Bear Shark does some things better than other cards. For example, it's more aggressive than Rat Pack against certain decks that use spells to control the board. Bear Shark does just get in there, but the problem is it's just a 3 mana 4/3.
So kind of for the same reason as Stitch Tracker, I rated Bear Shark a 1 star, but it's actually a 3-star card. Seeing 2 copies in the Asmodai Hunter deck, I think moving forward, Bear Shark is going to be a 4-star card, because in a more control-oriented meta, the Bear Shark is a beast.
Professor Putricide. I'm a little bit surprised that I'm giving this rating, but 1 star. Turns out that even though this is a 4 mana with upside, it's not going to rescue Hunter.
Yeah, Putricide, probably the most tragic correct rating of 1 star that I've given. Probably still won't see play just because the secrets are weak and the secret synergy is weak. So moving forward, still 1 star.
I could hedge. I could say 2 stars. Maybe it'll see experimentation.
No, it's alright. Don't hedge. You look like a genius
We
this
don't hedge
time.
in this review. We give the facts as they are.
Good
I'm
job.
not afraid of being wrong. 1 star. Exploding Bloatbat. A 1-star card because even though it looks like it's Consecration on a guy, you know what's better than Consecration on a guy if you were comparing it that way? Explosive Trap.
Yep, it turned out to be rightfully really bad, and it is 1 star and will still be 1 star moving forward.
Corpse Widow. 3 stars. I think Corpse Widow is strong enough that it might actually carry Mid-Range Hunter.
It turns out that Corpse Widow was not the card to carry Mid-Range Hunter. It didn't actually see play in the meta. It's a 1-star card. It's still a 1-star card for the next few. I'm not even giving it the 2-star treatment because I don't think it was strong enough that it saw play outside of the initial experimentation period.
Deathstalker Rexar. Even though it's not a great Mid-Range Hunter card, because it changes the hero power away from, win the game by steady shotting them into a late game card, I'm still giving this card a rating of 3 stars. Now, worth mentioning, in any other class, and I do mean any, I would rate this card 5 stars.
So this card currently is a 4-star card. It is actually a major player in making sure that Mid-Range Hunter has a really strong late game when you play the Rexar. Cease play is a 4-star card right now. I think moving forward, Hunter will be stronger, so I'm going to bump my rating of this card up to 5 stars, as it is the best card in a control metagame. And finally, we have Abominable Bowman to clean out the Hunters with a 1-star card. Yeah, Abominable Bowman turns out to be a 1-star card, because for 7 mana it just doesn't do enough. And it will still continue to be a 1-star card. And that sucks. So overall, Hunters, they get possibly the strongest card in the expansion if it weren't in Hunter, Deathstalker Rexar. And they get Corpse Widow. Yeah, pretty much Hunter got Deathstalker Rexar, which is actually arguably the strongest card of the expansion. But it's Hunter. And second of all, they actually get Bear Shark, which is extremely good in control versus control. So look forward to Hunter quite possibly climbing the ranks moving forward here. Frost Breath, Breath of Sindragosa. It only costs 1, and it's also 1 star. This is one I'm not absolutely certain on, since in theory it seems like Tempo Mage could run Sorcerer's Apprentice. So you may not know this, but enough data and enough playing of this has happened that I'm going to rate this a 2-star card. Has legitimate use in Tempo Mage. Maybe moving forward, if Tempo Mage were to get better, Breath of Sindragosa's rating would rise. I think it will continue to see experimentation, but not actually be run heavily, and will be discontinued in the future. So I will rate it, moving forward, a 2-star card. Ice Walker, another card that helps with the freeze synergy, and I rate it 1 star. All of this freeze synergy doesn't really seem to accomplish much. Yeah, it turns out 2 mana 1/3 is really bad. 1 star was correct, and moving forward, it will still be a 1-star unplayed card. There's only one card that takes advantage of freezing synergy in this set for Mage. It's not that good, spoiler. Doomed Apprentice gets a 1 star, since it's a 3 mana 3/2. Really bad stats for the effect. Yeah, it's really bad. 1 star, still 1 star moving forward. Cold Wraith, a 1-star card, even though it is a 3 mana 3/4 with upside. I don't think you can build a deck to enjoy the upside of Cold Wraith. Yeah, it's actually kind of surprising when I think about it, that a 3 mana 3/4 with a serious upside is a 1-star card, but it is 1 star. And will continue to be 1 star. Simulacrum, 2-star rating. I must admit that this card I don't think much of, but I haven't been playing much of Quest Mage, and I have been assured by Quest Mage Masters that apparently you put 1 copy of this card into your deck in order to more consistently copy your Sorcerer's Apprentice and possibly your Giants. So yes, apparently you actually do run a copy of Simulacrum in your Quest Mage deck. So I'm going to rate this card a 3-star. Quest Mage, not very powerful in this meta after all, but they all pretty much ran a copy of Simulacrum in their deck. Moving forward, I believe it will be a 3-star card still, as I believe Quest Mage will settle in somewhere between a tier 2 and tier 3 deck. Frozen Clone, a card that many people have laughed at. I'm actually going to rate 3 stars. So it turns out this secret is a 1-star secret. Seemed like it had potential, but a lot of the minions played were like really garbage minions in this meta. And even though Mirror Entity is bad, turns out Frozen Clone is also bad. You don't really have the mana cost, even if you do copy 2 Lich Kings with Frozen Clone. You'd rather just get the 1 Lich King out there immediately. Moving forward, still a 1-star card, I think. I was almost tempted to say 2-star card moving forward, because with more control decks, better minions will be played, but yeah, they'll just play Mirror Entity. Ghastly Conjurer, timid looking 4 mana 2/6. I rate 4 stars. Any card with a tame effect, even add Mirror Image into your hand, could be good enough if you add enough health to it. So this card did see play in the meta very lightly, but it only saw a light amount of play across all 3 decks. I think the right rating for this, given how it was played, is 3 stars. Moving forward, I think I will rate it a 2-star card, as I believe it may not be strong enough. It's kind of designed to be an anti-aggro deck, and aggro should be taking a little bit of a back seat. Sindragosa, as great as this dragon is, unfortunately, the bigger they are, the more 1-star they fall. Wow, that was terrible, but yes, 1 star. I rate that pun a 1 star also. And moving forward, Sindragosa will be a 1-star card. I theory crafted a Glacial Mysteries deck, and it was looking very promising to pull 15 mana worth of secrets, until I realized the reason why I'm going to rate it a 1-star card. Because it turns out that if you just play a weak minion and a weak spell,
It actually counters all of the secrets.
Exactly that, 1 star. I'm glad I theory crafted the deck.
Frostlich Jaina, really good with a elemental deck because all elementals get lifesteal. Potential even in a non-elemental deck due to the very powerful hero power. So I'm going to give this card 2 stars. I don't think Frostlich Jaina is powerful enough to put into a control mage deck. I'm not even sure that control mage will be that powerful in the next rotation. Frostlich Jaina doesn't fit into freeze mage, obviously, doesn't fit into secret mage, too slow. So I posit that the only real place for Frostlich Jaina is the elemental mage. And yet, I think that Elemental Mage might just work.
Turns out I was actually right on this one. A little bit of a surprise. Frostlich Jaina did not see play in Elemental Mage. In a Control Mage deck, though, it did come up, but it is rapidly seeing decline. So I believe that fits into exactly the category of a 2-star card. Indeed, it seems like almost every single control deck will beat Frostlich Jaina moving forward. Maybe Frostlich Jaina and the control mage deck has some amount of upside against aggro decks because they have slightly better board AoE tools. Really, it's so weak against the control mirror due to having light wind conditions, and Frostlich Jaina doesn't always summon a water elemental in control v control, that I will continue to rate it a 2-star card. Specifically for the reason that I think the deck will be played a little bit and then it will become discontinued because everyone will find out that this card is actually bad and that deck is bad. Not the card is bad, the card is good, but the deck is weak.
All in all, Mage gets a few toys for each of its archetypes with the potential for Elemental Mage actually becoming a thing.
So I'd say to recap, what Mage really got was Frostlich Jaina, which let them try out their control mage deck. But it turns out that wasn't quite strong enough. They got the toy of Simulacrum for the Quest Mage, and that was a little bit something. Turns out to not be enough, so Mage ends up kind of just sticking with the same old Secret Mage. And I think moving forward into the last 3 months of the expansion, probably we're going to see just Secret Mage, if any Mage decks stick around. Oh, and a little bit of Exodia Mage, if way too many control decks go up.
One of the best 1-drops we've seen in a while, Righteous Protector, gets 5 stars. It turns out when you discount any card that was almost good, a Noitron, by 1 mana and all you cut is 1 health off of it, that is a really good card.
Hey, that's exactly right. It is a 5-star card and it was run in exactly Aggro Paladin and Murloc Paladin. And I will continue to give it a 5-star rating as well, although this is not as strong a 5-star rating because I think that with the Murloc War Leader nerf, the aggro Murloc deck will be a little bit weaker, but Righteous Protector will still see play there, as well as in other mid-range Paladins maybe, as well as in buff Paladin.
Desperate Stand, 1 star. You compare this card to Ancestral Spirit and it looks so much worse, and it is.
Pretty much, it is a 1-star card and it will continue to be a 1-star card.
Dark Conviction, 3 stars. This card is probably not going to see play in a controlled paladin or even a mid-range paladin. But what's really powerful is playing this card on curve right after Righteous Protector or your Argent Squire.
Yeah, I thought that this deck might come about, but it turns out that the Murlocs just have enough synergy with each other that the man version wasn't good enough. And even if the man version were good enough, it doesn't stand up against the control decks that well either. This card is a 1-star card, and I believe moving forward will still be a 1-star card.
Howling Commander, 1-star card. It turns out Paladin just has something so much better in Stonehill Defender.
Yep, got outclassed by Stonehill Defender and didn't see play alongside it, so 1-star card, and will continue to be 1.
Chillblade Champion gets a very surprising 3-star rating from me. I think the card is weak, but it gets a 3-star rating solely for the purpose of activating the lifesteal effect on Corpse Taker. Because I feel like Corpse Taker decks might be a really big impact on Paladin of mid-range and control, this card granting the lifesteal to the Corpse Taker makes it an integral part of the deck.
That was actually exactly correct. It is a 3-star card in this meta due to hand buff Paladin, a tier 3 deck, running Chillblade Champion, as well as the occasional control Paladin running it for exactly Corpse Taker.
Arrogant Crusader, 3-star rating from me. This is going to be part of that puzzle between Dark Conviction, Righteous Protector, Argent Squire, which might create another Paladin aggro archetype other than the Murloc version.
And that archetype is the man aggro Paladin deck that I was talking about. Turns out that this card isn't strong enough, and I think it will also still not be strong enough,
even after the War Leader nerf. So 1 star and 1 star moving forward. White Sorrow gets a 1 star from me. Turns out that this weapon probably needs to break 2 Divine Shields rather quickly, and that's really, really hard to do. It's a 1 star card and will continue to be a 1 star card. Welcome to the worst weapon in KFC. Bolvar Fireblood gets 4 stars from me. This card has been scrutinized a lot by people, from being called, oh, Bolvar, bad again, to, hey, Bolvar, that's actually pretty good. And I'm in the camp of Paladins don't have any good 5-drops. Even if there's no Divine Shield break, it's not a total disaster. With all the Corpse Takers I plan to run, which can be played on 4 and have Divine Shield, just maybe it'll work. So yeah, the idea was that Control Paladin would be on the rise, and you would play the Corpse Taker with the Divine Shield on 4, and then you'd play the Bolvar, and it would be absolutely insane as a 5-mana 3/7 Divine Shield. All of that is accurate. However, it turns out that most Paladins didn't go the control route, and Control Paladin turns out to actually be surprisingly weak compared to all of the other control possibilities out there. So Bolvar Fireblood ends up not even seeing play, despite Paladins lacking 5-drops. Most Paladins just choose not to run 5-drops, and Bolvar Fireblood is a 1 star, and I think that given the quality of the other cards that they're running, it will still be a 1 star card moving forward. Blackguard gets a 1 star in a pretty controversial rating, because the card does look pretty good, right? But it just turns out that I tried to fit this card into mid-range Paladin and Control Paladin, and I always found better options. I'll take a lot of credit for this one. It is a 1 star card. A lot of people fought me on this one. They thought I was a fool, but turns out, who's laughing now? Blackguard, even though it seems like the stat line is really good, it just can't fit into a Control Paladin deck, and a Control Paladin deck didn't run it, and even if it did, Control Paladin isn't even doing that well. Uther of the Ebon Blade, I give it a 5 star. This card seems absolutely amazing. The leader of Control Paladin decks, Control Paladin is currently a deck doing pretty well, and I think with all the love that Control Paladin gets this expansion, that Uther of the Ebon Blade will be just that card to push Control Paladin into a great deck. So it turns out that Uther of the Ebon Blade and Control Paladin in general don't see play. Why press the 2-mana button to summon a guy when you can make a man, and then make a bigger man, and then make an even bigger man? Turns out that Druid is way better at the end game than most of these control decks. So Uther of the Ebon Blade ends up getting a 2-star rating for having been played in Control Paladin, still seeing a little bit of experimentation. I mean, obviously if you play a Control Paladin deck, you're going to play it, but it is quickly dwindling out of existence. I think it will not even see enough play moving forward. I've seen enough better control decks than the Control Paladin deck at this point. When I think about how Control Paladin matches up against the other decks that can be control, I think it just doesn't do well. Paladin picks up not only the big late game finisher, Uther, but gets a supporting card in getting there in Bolvar. Paladin even gets a lot of good stuff for the aggressive side: Arrogant Crusader, Righteous Protector, Dark Conviction. Good stuff here. So basically they ended up getting Righteous Protector, but they also got Bone Mare, and we'll talk about Bone Mare much later. Shadow Ascendant gets a 1 star. This is an interesting card that might be really good in other decks, but Priest Zoo deck doesn't quite exist yet. Yep, a Zoo deck didn't come up, so turns out this is a 1-star card, and Priest Zoo deck will not miraculously come up in the next 3 months. Maybe someday. Spirit Lash. Overrated. 1 star. I look at the card and I see Whirlwind, which costs 2 mana. And I see Whirlwind in a class that can't cast Execute or Sleep with the Fishes. Not nearly as good as people think it is. Spirit Lash turns out to be a 4-star card, as it has made its way into the Razakist list. Razakist Priest is actually a tier 1 deck, which would normally make Spirit Lash a 5-star deck under the normal definition of how I'm rating things. However, I'm going to make a slight exception for these Reno-style decks, which only run 1 copy of each in their deck. So I'm not going to just rate every single card that's in the Razakist list 5 stars. Also, Spirit Lash is a little bit on the slightly weak side in that list, and sometimes doesn't get run. Moving forward, I will rate this card a 4-star again. It's going to be a lower 4-star because I think more Razakist decks will not run it, since this is clearly an anti-aggro card. But that kind of counterbalances that I think Razakist Priest is going to move into like one of the best decks in the meta, as opposed to just tier 1 right now. Acolyte of Agony, 1 star. Turns out 3 mana 3/3 isn't strong enough. Yep, 1 star. Eternal Servitude, 3 stars. And this card has some tremendous potential to be 4 mana to get 8 or 9 mana worth of stuff. It's meant to be a control priest card for certain, or a combo resurrect priest Barnes and then kill something and then bring it back with Servitude. I'm certainly going to try it out in control priest. I'm not entirely sure how well it will fare. So Eternal Servitude is in what I'm going to rank it in a tier 2 list of Big Priest. So therefore, since this card defines Big Priest, I'm going to rate it 5 stars. It also sees some amount of play in Razakis lists every so often, but very, very sparingly. Moving forward, I think it will be a 5-star card because I believe Big Priest will rise from a tier 2 deck to maybe tier 1 contention, as it is pretty strong against control decks, especially against Razakis lists, who cannot deal with the huge threat problem one after the other due to their limited answers. Devour Mind, 1 star. It's Thoughtseal's bigger brother, but I feel like Control Priest, which is where this deck would go, has different options in order to be greedy. Devour Mind ends up being a 1-star card, not even fitting into the Razakis deck. I've seen some Razakis lists run Thoughtsteal, so moving forward, it is possible that in a more control-heavy environment, they would decide to run Devour Mind instead. So I think in the future, still a 1-star card, but is pushing on 2 stars for what it's worth. Shadow Essence. 1 star. It's too difficult to bring out a good effect from your deck, and a 6 mana 5/5 without a really good effect for Death Rattle simply isn't worth it. Well, this is probably one of the bigger surprises of the set. As another one of the cards that defines a tier 2 deck of Big Priest, I'm going to rate this a 5-star card. It's less good than Eternal Servitude, and I argued with myself, should I really call this a 5-star card, or is it more of the support card and it's the 4-star card? But I'll give credit where credit is due. I think Shadow Essence, without Shadow Essence, the deck clearly wouldn't exist, so it deserves its 5-star status. It just barely sneaks in there. Embrace Darkness, 3 stars. I'm actually hopeful for this card, unlike a lot of other people. At a 4 mana discount from Mind Control, that's worth taking the 1 hit in the face, I think. Turns out that it isn't worth it, and it's a 1-star card. In the future, given that it's mostly given that the meta will shift more towards control, in my opinion, maybe that would justify raising the star rating in the future up to 2, but there's a lot of control decks out there which don't even run good minions, such as Razakis Priest, such as Exodia Mage, such as Dead Man's Hand Warrior. In control versus control, maybe you just want to run Mind Control anyways. So, in the future, still probably a 1-star card. Archbishop Benedictus, 1 star, because turns out the really cool effect doesn't really accomplish that much. It makes you be able to out-fatigue everyone, but that's not enough to justify a 7 mana 4/6. You might expect me to just agree and be like, yeah, 1 star is correct, and this is the lowest 2-star rating I will ever give a card, but it has seen play competitively in Priest decks, Razakis decks to be specific, as a one-of, but it does see play every once in a while in some of those variations, and enough of them run that card. Enough people are running that card at high ranks, believe it or not, it does happen, that I'm willing to give it the 2-star rating. It might just be in it for the memes, but it is legitimately there in order to win against fatigue in every single matchup except Dead Man's Hand. Moving forward, I'm even going to upgrade this card to a 2-star rating. Some matchups go into fatigue. Benedictus might be the card that gets slipped in there to win. It might even go up to a 3-star card if enough Razakis versus Razakis matchups get played. Shadow Reaper Anduin, 4 stars. I think that the Battle Cry ability is basically 1 Shadow Word death most of the time, but sometimes, maybe most of the time, you can actually get it to hit 2 guys, in which case it's absolutely brilliant. And you also get the Shadow Form bonus at the end. Slightly better than Shadow Form, but I figure too much work in using the rapid fire. Yes, the card would be really good in a Kazakis Raza deck. The question is it worth sacrificing all that consistency in order to pull that off? We'll see. Well, we did see, and it turns out it was worth it. 5 stars. Quite possibly one of the best Death Knights. It's just arguable if it's this one or if it's Malfurion. Some people would definitely say Anduin because Anduin defines the deck, and that's pretty legitimate. But some people might just say the sheer stat line of Druid Malfurion is like just better. But either way, Shadow Reaper Anduin has defined a deck of Razakis. If we could give more stars than 5 stars, maybe we would for this one, but unfortunately 5 stars is the highest rating I can give you, Anduin. Look forward to this deck dominating the meta for the next 3-ish months. Obsidian Statue, controversial rating. I'm rating it a 2-star. And I was going to rate this a 1-star card, but I looked at my own rating system and was like, okay, I think this card is the type of card that will see play in Control Priest. It will be successful for some time and then eventually be cycled out for a better card. So Big Priest has single-handedly carried 3 of these cards that I rated low into the high ratings. Obsidian Statue, I hate you, Big Priest, is a 5-star card. It's the card that they did need to be printed in order to make the entire Big Priest thing even work, especially against aggro decks. Big Priest puts 2 copies of this into their deck. It occasionally sees play, very, very rarely, in Kazakus as well. This is like the lowest 5-star rating I'm going to give a card as well, like arguably closer to 4, but I think 5 is close enough. Seems like Control Priest is getting a lot of options. Yeah, that's it! Well, I mean, Priest actually makes out like a bandit. It got 3 big tools which made an entire deck viable, Big Priest, and it made even another deck viable in Razakis Priest. So Priest really got some good stuff this expansion. And look forward to Priest being on the top of the meta for the next 3 months, I'd say. What else is there to say? Leeching Poison, 1 star. Someday, maybe it's possible that Rogue gets this big durability weapon, which makes a lot of these cards great. With this expansion, I believe is not that day. Yep, not that day for the entire expansion, 1 star. Doomerang, 1 star. This was one of the most overrated cards in the expansion. I'm glad I rated it a 1 star. It will still be a 1 star. I hope you guys all see that this deck will not work in the future, at least for this expansion. Roll the Bones, 1 star. Doing the math, it looks like if you can get at least 14 Death Rattles in your deck, it starts to look really, really good, drawing on average 2 cards. But ultimately, it seems like a deck in which you can put that many Death Rattles in your deck doesn't currently exist. 1 star, exactly for the reason that that deck doesn't currently exist, but maybe in the future with more Death Rattles. Plague Scientist, 1 star. I don't see this minion-based with a low attack minion possibly holding out on the board being Rogue's specialty quite yet. For everything else, there's Vile Spine Slayer. This card actually ends up being a 3-star card because the mid-range deck was found for Rogue. And this is kind of a new development, not that popular yet, but enough on the radar to not even be 2 stars, but looks legitimately to be an up-and-up deck. It is the Prince Keleseth Rogue deck, which runs a bunch of minions and then Keleseth, and that's exactly where you want your Plague Scientist to go. You can trade one of your weak minions up. In the future, I think this deck stock is going to continue to go up, so I'm actually going to rate it a 4-star card for the rest of the expansion. If you thought the previous ones were controversial, Shadowblade being a 1 star will really freak you out. So Shadowblade actually, along with Doomerang, ends up being one of the most overrated cards of this set. I correctly rated it a 1-star card. I didn't buy into the hype. Looks good, but the main problem is it's in Rogue, which already has the default weapon as the hero power. And this card ended up seeing no play in decks whatsoever. Middle Rogue currently clocking in at a very powerful 32% win rate overall. I think that does not justify a Shadowblade 2-star rating. Runeforge Haunter, 1 star. Seems like you'd run Captain Greenskin if you wanted to skip a durability. Yep, 1 star. Lilian Boss, 3 stars. Sometimes, in those games where you don't draw gul'dan Auctioneer, and you have that hand of useless cards, you can just toss those all out for better cards. So it turns out that instead of tossing out those cards when you don't draw the gul'dan Auctioneer, you're so reluctant to play Lilian Voss because you might draw a gul'dan Auctioneer that you don't actually toss away your counterfeit coins and your backstabs anyways, unless you're super desperate. And that's why Lilian Voss has earned the nickname of the Lost Boss. So at least we got that meme out of the way. Turns out to be 1 star, and moving forward in the future, still a 1-star card. Bone Baron, 1 star. I don't see this mid-range Rogue running a value card to be a deck yet.
Yep, 1 star.
Spectral Pillager, 1 star, and it just manages to baffle me. If you wanted to kill a minion, just go ahead and play Vilespine Slayer.
1 star. This card was made for meme videos where you try to 1-turn kill your opponent with Spectral Pillager, and then people are like, wow, you managed to do it somehow. Good job.
Valeera the Hollow. She has earned enough of my respect to call her a 5-star card. And that is a surprise to me because my original rating for her when she first came out was a 1-star card.
So yeah, it turns out that Valeera the Hollow is extremely powerful when played. However, the Miracle Rogue deck, I think it's even generous to call it, in this meta, a tier 3 deck. If we manage to give Valeera as much of the benefit of the doubt as possible, we'll rate her a 4-star card, as a card that really stands out in a tier 3 deck and really makes the deck because of the reason that she's able to copy the Arcane Giants and she's able to copy the Swashbucklers and let you keep going. There's a lot of control decks which seem to do better than Miracle Rogue, which has really turned into a control deck though. And I believe moving forward, I'm going to drop her stock down even further into a 3-star card as I see her becoming the card definer in a tier 4 deck. With that logic, the Rogue weapon is a 4-star card. Mill Rogue couldn't exist without that weapon. There's a difference. Miracle Rogue is actually a tier 3 deck. Mill Rogue is a tier 7 deck. I could literally beat your Mill Rogue with a free-to-play deck.
So Rogue ultimately gets a bunch of cards to set up for the future, or maybe the deck already exists where you have all this weapon synergy and you combine to make the super mega awesome weapon and you doomerang the weapon back into your hand. It goes back to its base power and then you can replay it, but I don't really see that happening. Perhaps more importantly, Miracle Rogue got 2 toys with Valeera and Voss.
So yeah, in the future, Rogue will get that weapon synergy use, maybe. But for now, all they actually got was Valeera.
Warlock, 1-star card. People keep trying to insist that the Murloc tag makes it that much better than Glacial Shard, even though this card costs 1 more mana and only has 1 more health. You can even get it with Ice Fishing, you argue. But I think the card sucks so much that you don't even want to draw this card with Ice.
Yeah, this card is terrible. On reflection, when looking back, we can still say it's terrible, but some people still think that exact thing. I don't even know what to say. It's a 1-star card, and I don't know why people had such a hard time seeing that before.
Ice Fishing, 2 stars. The only reason why I'm giving Ice Fishing 2 stars is because 2 mana draw 2 cards is ridiculously good, and I feel like just because of this card alone, it is possible that Quest Shaman might actually be a contender.
1-star card. Turns out that Quest Shaman was not a contender because the aggro decks would just kill it too much, and finishing the quest and playing your card turned out to still not be that powerful.
Cryostasis, 1 star. While 2 mana for +3/+3 is pretty good, and I imagine that's mostly how you use it to be played on one of your taunts, the downside of potentially getting hard removed, losing the 2-for-1
Free Shaman!
Feels a bit too painful for me. And even in that case, it's just 2 mana for 3/3 basically. Drakari Defender, 1 star. That is a lot of overload.
Overload Shaman!
Compared to Feral Spirit, that's another 1 mana overload for 2 extra health. Icebreaker, 1 star. And that's unfortunate for the rest of the Shaman cards, which freeze things because this is kind of the big enabler of freeze.
Freeze Shaman!
Like actual killing. I just think that this is not good enough with all of the other freeze cards in order to work. Not yet, Freeze Shaman. Avalanche, 1 star. Consider how bad it is to cast Avalanche when there's only 1 minion. And then consider how pretty bad it is to cast Avalanche when there's only 2 minions. Just run Lightning Storm, just run Volcano instead, just run Maelstrom Portal, I'd say. Voodoo Hexer, 2 stars. This is a card that I'm actually giving a 2-star rating, even though I could not quite build a deck to put it in. You know, I try not to do this to look at an individual card which looks powerful and just say, based on the power level, we'll, raise the rating on it. But I have no doubt that someone out there is going to be able to put this card into a mid-range shaman or a control shaman.
So mid-range shaman and control shaman didn't exist in this meta, and it will still not exist because other decks do mid-range and control better. The card actually does look pretty powerful in those decks, but it doesn't have enough other synergies going for it. And also, 3 shaman. So 1 star in actuality, as well as 1 star for the rest of this expansion, but this is one of the cards to look out for as a good tool, similar to Ali Armorsmith moving forward. Thrall Deathseer. Unlike the Voodoo Hexer, I am rating this card 1 star, because I did try pretty hard to put this card into decks. People look at Evolve Shaman, and they're like, oh, of course you put in Thrall Deathseer, right? But it turns out that 5 mana costs 5 times as much, and you usually want to do Doppelgangster Evolve. You don't want to go Doppelgangster Thrall Deathseer, that costs 10 mana and that's ridiculous. For almost any circumstance where Thrall Deathseer would be good, you could just run Bloodlust. Why not split the difference? Why not 1 Bloodlust and Thrall Deathseer? Because Bloodlust is better. Why not split the difference and go 2 Bloodlust, 1 Thrall Deathseer? Because that's overkill, I'd say. Turns out that's not overkill. And I was right for the longest time. People didn't run Thrall Deathseer. But eventually, people decided to start throwing in Thrall Deathseer into their token Shaman Evolve deck, and it stuck around. 4 stars for being a card in a tier 2 deck. I think moving forward, Token Shaman will continue to be a tier 2 deck, so I will continue to rate this a 4 star for the remainder of the expansion. Marabi, 1 star. The mana cost is so high on this legendary, and it's only a 4/4, that it seems like the turn you play it would be the turn that you need to get the value. And Voodoo Hexer into Marabi doesn't look that bad until you realize that Marabi 6 mana 4/4. Draw one of the opponent's minions. It just seems like it wouldn't work out. I don't see that entire packaging rolling out. Last, but surprisingly not least, is Snow Fury Giant, which I'm going to rate 2 stars. Not 1 star, because I can actually see a very legitimate deck for it. It would be a control Shaman list running Volcano, Lightning Storm, Jinyu Water Speaker, perhaps Jade Claws, perhaps Faceless Manipulator, perhaps Earth Elemental and Ancestral Spirit. That kind of get back your minion. I tried that deck, it didn't work. This card didn't see any play. 1 star card. 1 star in the future, especially with the Hex nerf. Shaman gets 2 different archetypes to look at. Maybe the Snow Fury Giant sees play in the big control overload deck, and maybe Ice Fishing makes some sort of Murloc deck. That didn't work either. Ice Fishing is actually an incredible card. The Shaman class got so many of these free synergy cards, but
they did.
You put all the free synergy together.
That in fact did not work out at all. So really, the Shaman got Thrall, which is a thrown into the Evolved Shaman list. Perhaps more important is, how long must this go on though? I make these calls knowing full well that I could be predicting the next 5-star card as a 1-star card. I've thought about this, and believe me, some people think that it is the easiest thing to do to call all of a class's cards 1 star. They think that's easy. But believe me, much easier would be to call the cards that seem to be good. This is the setup for the Warlock
3-4
here.
stars, and then call the obviously bad cards 1 star. It is much harder to call all of these cards 1 star. So I just wanted to get that out there. Now let's begin the Warlock section. Sanguine Reveler, 1 star. The highest potential of this card is to activate the eggs in Zoo. I don't actually think that's that valuable.
Yep, Zoo isn't that good, and this is a very specific version of Zoo. This was a 1-star card in this particular meta. I'm almost tempted to raise my rating of it to 2 stars in new meta, but I'm still going to give it a 1 star.
Gnome Feratu, 1 star. We had to do a huge lecture on why removing the top card of your opponent's deck isn't actually impactful at all in most games.
This is one of the very, very interesting cards, which is really bad at low levels, but possibly has legitimacy at a higher level, where you actually make your decks and plan out the entire 30 card versus 30 card deck, because in that situation, Gnome Feratu really is removing a card from your deck because it does go into fatigue. This is an extremely untried out archetype and very new, which is why I try not to do Trump reviews 1 month into the expansion. I think in the current metagame, a very reluctant 3-star is actually fair, because there are so many decks out there which rely on key cards that you do randomly win a good amount of time with Gnome Feratu. And it is legitimate to say that you can do that because they do draw out their entire deck and then win with that 1 card sometimes. Alright, Gnome Feratu, you're rising up in the stocks, man.
Drained Soul. Now this card is good in Control Warlock.
Warlock is currently a massive underdog. Warlock really needed to get some pretty amazing stuff in order to join the class system here. This card looks great, right? Does what Warlock wants to do. Actually have a 2-mana answer on turn 2, and even get a slight bonus. I have talked up this card a lot, and it's time to rate the card 1 star, because I don't believe that with the tools that Warlock was presented, that Warlock will actually see play. So I'm rating Drain Soul a 3-star card. I wasn't actually that far off the mark. Well, okay, fine, I was. I thought it was a completely hopeless deck, but Control Warlock does make it into tier 3. Generously rating it tier 3, I would say, because it's not that far up in tier 3. As it loses to Jade Druid, it loses to Razaka's Priest, it loses to... It does pretty well against aggro decks, though. And now we enter Defile. So Defile 1 star. Defile looks like it could be a 2-mana clear the board. You know, I actually think that people are dreaming a little bit too much about that. It's probably not quite that good, but it is certainly a great card. In a world where Warlock sees play, probably a 5-star card. So it turns out that Warlock did see play. And yet, it is just a tier 3 deck. Defile is the definer on making sure that it made its way up there and actually be decent against aggro though. So Defile gets a 4-star rank for me as a card that defines a tier 3 deck. I want to emphasize that even though this looks like I was super wrong, Warlock barely made it up into the list of tier 3. Moving forward in the future with Defile, surprisingly I don't actually see Control Warlock as pushing that much further above tier 3. It might climb to tier 2, but it's hurt a bit by the fact that all these aggro decks might be diminishing in popularity. Defile is a great anti-aggro card. So I'm going to leave Defile as it is at 4 stars and not raise it up to a 5-star card. Maybe with the Death Knight it makes some kind of deck. Maybe. I go with my best.
I probably
guess,
should have rated it 2-star though.
Now we go
moving
to
forward,
easy
I'll
parts.
remember this.
Alfiend 1 star because it has the potential to discard a bunch of cards, and discard Warlock isn't good.
Haha, discard Warlock.
Zoo has not actually ended up being good, and this will not make it good. Unwilling Sacrifice 1 star because it turns out that a Deadly Shot isn't that great a card, and you have to sacrifice
killing your
a
own
minion with
minions.
it. Initially, when I reviewed the card, I was like, maybe there are some cards that you really want to kill on your own side. Turns out there are not. Treachery 1 star. While it is a very good combo of Doomsayer, I don't think there's enough
memes.
support for this Control Warlock yet. And yes, there are the memes of Treachery, Howlfiend, Spreading Madness, but I don't believe that'll actually be a thing. Despicable Dreadlord. Now this took a lot of thought. Looks incredible. Yeti, stats, Arcane Explosion your opponent every single turn. We're going to give it 2 stars because I think if there is any card that makes it into Warlock, it'll be Despicable Dreadlord.
I was right. Kind of. I've played with it a good amount. Warlock is my favorite class, and I saw the potential in Despicable Dreadlord. It is super good. 4 stars because it really helps define that Control Warlock. So indeed, it sees play in both the Zoo side and the Control side. Moving forward, I'm going to rate Dreadlord a 5-star card. So Control Warlock and Zoo is an interesting puzzle, because Control Warlock has mostly been good against aggro decks, and I feel like aggro decks are going slightly away. But I think that Zoo's stock is going to rise quite a bit, because Zoo was bad against aggro decks, and aggro decks are going away. So Dreadlord is going to be the top Warlock card I rate at 5. Blood Queen Lanathel, 1 star, as much as Discard Warlock.
This card will not carry the discard Warlock. It won't work out. And finally, the big man, Blood Reaver Gul'dan, one of the best hero power changes in the game. Battlecry could potentially be really big. I built a deck with it. Potential lots of value. 1 star. Why? Because I just don't think that entire deck comes together and is that much better, if at all, than any other deck out there.
Blood Reaver Gul'dan actually does piece together the entire Control Warlock deck. It's because you have just barely enough demons between exactly 2 Despicable Dreadlord and 2 Abyssal Enforcer and 2 Voidwalker. Exactly those 6 minions that Blood Reaver Gul'dan is just barely good enough. That makes that card a 4-star card as a card that defines a tier 3 deck in this meta, and I believe moving forward we're going to keep it at 4 stars.
as it's going to still be like a tier 3/tier 2 deck. It's specifically not that good against the rest of the control field that I expect to be seeing. So many better control options. So Warlock gets a lot of good cards. Despicable Dreadlord is great, Defile is great, Drain Soul is great, even Blood Queen Lanathel is pretty good, actually. It's just that I don't see those cards being enough of an impact to make either of the archetypes of Zoo, or Control Warlock, or even Handlock being pushed over the top. So Warlock, on reflection, did really get a lot of great cards, and it is because of those great cards that Control Warlock was able to be born. I didn't think they got enough good cards. You can laugh, but I was only barely wrong, because it is a tier 3 deck, and if this meta continued on, I have no doubt that Warlock would actually fall off, which is very important. So I'm going to say this very clearly. If this meta went on, and Blizzard hadn't stepped in and made changes, it would be all Jade Druid, and all like Token Druid and Aggro Pirate and whatnot, and Control Warlock can't compete against these decks. While you may feel like you can laugh at me for misrating these cards, I think this is a very unfortunate circumstance of having to re-rate these cards 1 month in. The deck is currently a tier 3 deck and would be ousted from the metagame if not for the changes upcoming. Agree, disagree? Feel free to comment about that. Warrior gets a bit more of a development on a mechanic in Animated Berserker. Yet, I still think this is a 1-star card because I don't think the support and the synergy is dealing damage to yourself, Warrior. This berserking deck is going to come together. Forge of Souls, 5 stars, and I'm going to give it a 5-star asterisk. It's going to be very common to run exactly 1 copy of this card in your deck, but that doesn't mean that it's not 5 stars because it's still an insane card. 2 mana, draw 2 cards is absolutely incredible. Yes, it draws 2 weapons. You can't usually use both at the same time, but the warrior class is defined by the weapons as a major power play. I think most likely to be played in Taunt Warrior and Control Warrior. Unfortunately and surprisingly not good. 2-star card, it was tried out in Control Warrior. That would be like even just normal Control Warrior, Taunt Warrior, even Pirate Warrior. Pirate Warrior like actually is still running this card sometimes just to get enough fuel. I think it's wrong there. Dead Man's Hand Warrior does run the Forge of Souls along with Fire War Axe occasionally. I also think it's wrong there. There are quite a number of decks that run this card. Maybe enough to justify 3 stars, but because I personally feel like it's incorrect in almost every single one of those decks, I'm going to go ahead and like just let it slide down to a 2-star card. Moving forward with the Fire War Axe nerf, Warrior's gonna just be hit really hard across the board, and I don't think Forge of Souls is gonna be good enough to fetch the 3 mana Fire War Axe in the Arcanite Reaper, or the 3 mana Fire War Axe in the Blood Razor, and so therefore will be a 1-star card in the future. Dead Man's Hand, 1 star. This one's controversial, and will also have a lot of people agreeing with me, so let me just say that I understand both sides. So there are 2 ways to play this card. First method is to go all out Dead Man's Hand. You run 2 copies of this card in your deck, play Dead Man's Hand while you have a copy of Dead Man's Hand in your hand, and you literally go infinite with your deck. This is for those dreamers out there who believe that you can take the game to 50 turns and to super fatigue, basically. I think that it's too dangerous to run 2 copies of a card which do nothing for you other than enable you to go into super fatigue, which leads you to the other way of using Dead Man's Hand, which is run a 1 copy of in your deck. This lets you out fatigue most decks very practically. I just think that it's not worth running a card in your deck just specifically for the purposes of out fatiguing someone. Kind of similar to the idea of running specific tech cards like Eater of Secrets. Probably just generally not good enough. And on the 2 Dead Man's Hand front, there's also another way to use it. You can actually run a very heavy cycle deck. You draw so many cards with Battle Rage that you need to Dead Man's Hand in order to be able to draw more cards. Play those Arcane Giants for 0, Blood Warriors or something like that. I don't think that's practical enough either. I don't deny that there's the possibility that a Fatigue Warrior build comes around, but I see the likelihood as not very high. So a Fatigue Warrior deck did come around. Now, whether or not it's actually good in this meta is pretty debatable. I was looking up the stats for the deck across the Legend to 10 ranks. There's a good amount of people playing it because it is a pretty fun deck to play. But the win rate on it is only 43%.
but there aren't that many people playing it to even make a blip on the Vicious Syndicate. It didn't even make it into the Vicious Syndicate report, in other words. So technically it's not even a tier 4 deck according to them. So I'm having the tough time of having to give a subjective rating on how good I think this deck was in the meta. It's somewhere between tier 3 and tier 4, I think. Here's the thing, given enough time, with the meta given enough time to settle, maybe Dead Man's Hand deck maybe people would have practiced it well enough. And maybe it would have become good enough to be like a tier 2 or tier 1 deck. All that being said, let me very generously say that Dead Man's Hand is a tier 3 deck. And believe me, that is extremely generous. Possibly more accurate to call it a tier 4 deck. But I think the way it's trending, it would be a tier 3 deck. Card definitely defines the deck. So therefore, I think 4 stars on this card. In the new meta, I'm going to take a bold stance that I think this will be a 5-star card. It'll be at least tier 2, and this card will define that deck. Probably one of the biggest surprises to me. Bring It On! 1-star card. I'm not even sure it would see play at 2 mana, gain 10 armor. I even considered the fact that the Warrior Death Knight cannot armor up anymore, and maybe you want the armor gain. No. Armor Smith, Shield Block should be enough. I'm going to go as far as to say, as much as Dead Man's Hand defines this Fatigue Warrior deck, so too does Bring It On. Less so than Dead Man's Hand, obviously, so I considered giving it a 3-star for a tier 3 deck, but I do believe it's just as important. Dead Man's Hand would not work without Bring It On. So I'm going to give this a 4-star rating as a card that defines the Fatigue Warrior deck, which is a tier 3 deck. In the future, given that I think that Dead Man's Fatigue Warrior deck is going to be rising in stock into at least a tier 2 deck, Bring It On is going to rise alongside it into a 5-star deck. These two, I predict, are going to be the standout surprises of the next 3 months. Valkyr Soulclaimer. Unfortunately, the stat line is just too weak. 1-star card. Self-damage warrior deck. 3 mana, 4/3. 1-star card. It's one of those cards that you're just going to keep hitting the face with because you want to get that death rattle effect off, but it turns out that aggressive decks don't value 6 armor at all. This one's a little bit of a surprise too. It turns out to be significant just because of N'Zoth. And I didn't really account for N'Zoth in the calculation, so it's a 2-star card, and I think in the future it'll be a 1-star card because of the Fire War Axe nerf. But it had its moment in the limelight as you managed to play N'Zoth, and then you got your Mountain Fire armors back. So in the future, I think it's a 1-star card because of the Fire War Axe nerf. Bloodrazor, 5-star card. With the Bloodrazor, along with the Fire War Axe, that's part of what makes Forge of Souls great, because Warrior has 4 great weapons, at minimum. Bloodrazor is 2 swipes, 1 card. It's good stuff. Yeah, Bloodrazor, extremely strong card. Easy 5-star card, because 1, it'll see play in Fatigue Warrior, 2, it sees play in every other Control Warrior deck. Death Revenant, 1 star. They really
self-damage warrior cards being extremely understated for some reason.
But made the card so unpowerful, so weak, that it's not even really worth considering. Rotface, 2-star card. Rotface could end up being really good. I see it as a card that is tried out in Control Warrior and phased out in favor for Gromish, though. You can only realistically summon 1 random legendary with Rotface on the turn that you summon Rotface. I mean, realistically, you could do 2, but that's a lot of work. And it turns out it just wasn't worth that amount of work for 2 or 1 random legendaries. I thought it had some potential, but nope. So 1 star in the future as well. And finally, Scourge Lord Garrosh. I rate this card 4 stars. Seems like Control Warrior wants to keep the armor up ability, but I think that the ability to constantly whittle down your opponent's minions is really good, and this weapon is just really good. Control Warrior was close enough to being a top tier deck that I think with the addition of Bloodrazor and Forge of Souls, it will be a top tier deck, and Scourge Lord Garrosh will come along for the ride. The lack of armor up is bad, but we didn't really predict that you would be able to go infinite with Dead Man's Hand and Bring It On, which is the super armor up. And the Whirlwind each turn is really, really good as long as you do have that constant armor up ability in some fashion. So Scourge Lord Garrosh gets a 5-star rating.
as a key card in Dead Man's Hand Fatigue Warrior. So Warrior gets a lot of good control warrior options, and the cement is poured for possibly a self-damaging deck. So the big development that comes out from Warrior is actually going to be that Fatigue Warrior is a thing, thanks to Dead Man's Hand and Bring It On and Scourge Lord Garish. They needed exactly those cards to make that deck viable, but they got those cards into what will be one of the most interesting decks of Hearthstone, I would say. And now, the neutral cards. Starting with Snow Flipper Penguin. This card's actually a acceptable pack filler card. 1 star though. 1 star. Wretched Tiller is a 1 mana 1/1. It's actually worse than Lepergnum because if they kill it, it actually didn't do any extra damage to the face. 1 star. 1 star. Dreadscale Knight is a 1 mana 1/1. 1 star. I actually saw someone play this against me on ladder. It was incredible. 1 star. Acris Veteran. 5 stars. This card is a really, really good aggro card, and I figure one of the aggro decks somewhere out there will pick it up. Probably multiple, maybe multiple. So this card was tried out in a few Zoo decks. Zoo deck managed to stick around a little bit, but it's just so unpopular that I'm not even going to call it a tier 3 deck. So in reality, Acris Veteran ended up being a 2-star card, and in the future, it'll probably still be a 2-star card. I expected to see some experimentation in Zoo, in the new meta, and maybe some other aggressive decks. Tuskar Fisherman, 1 star. 1 star. Turns out that with the spell damage minions, you're usually running a spell heavy deck, and it's very difficult to count on having a minion on the board. So Tuskar Fisherman, as efficiently stat as it is, and being not entirely pack filler, but interesting pack filler, is still not good. Tainted Zealot is an interesting card. Sticky spell damage minion. Due to the extra spell damage, if Defile is good, Tainted Zealot is going to be good. Defile will deal 2 damage, and if your opponent has a 2 health minion, Defile will trigger again. Man, you got it, Trump.
2 damage, killing the Zealot, and then it'll do 1 more damage. Now, given that I have decided to call most of the Warlock cards 1 star, though, I'm going to double down on Tainted Zealot and also call it 1 star.
Oh, the double down. So, given that the Defile and the Warlock deck is considered tier 3, Tainted Zealot is actually not always a 2 copy of in that deck. Sometimes it's a 1 copy of. So it's actually somewhere in between a 2 and a 3 star, but we're going to round up generously and call it a 3-star card now. I think in the future I will also call this a 2-star card because I see Warlock, Control Warlock as a tier 3 deck, even in the new meta, and Tainted Zealot will not always be a part of that. It might even see itself get cut from the deck for Blood Mage Thalnos, especially with less aggro. Prince Keleseth, 2 stars. So I do see the serious potential in this card. Maybe Zoo, maybe aggro Paladin. Has the super high chance of high rolling it. I'm giving it a 2 just because I'm not entirely confident in that situation happening because I didn't really have that much faith in Zoo. Even though it will only happen about 25% of the time because that's about the odds of getting the Keleseth and playing it onto. The 25% of the time where you win 75% of the time improves the win rate a lot. Welcome to the world where Prince Keleseth is actually good. Prince Keleseth in this current meta rated in at... This is a little bit subjective. It was run in Zoo, it was run in the Rogue Keleseth deck, and it's named after Keleseth, so that implies it's good, right? And it was run in some of the aggro Paladin lists. I suppose all of that combined together, I'll rate this Prince Keleseth a 4-star card. Moving forward in the future, I do think Keleseth will be a part of that Rogue deck still, and it will be a major factor in that Rogue deck. So I will leave it as 4 stars in the future as well. Fallen Sun Cleric. Pretty efficient. Still gonna give it 1 star though. Yep, 1 star. Quite sees play in these aggro decks. Rygul, 1 star. It's worse than 1 star. Shallow Gravedigger, 1 star. It's too 1 star. Prince Tal'Darim, 1 star. 1 star. Sorry, Prince, you're the only 1-star card, which is a surprise since most people thought all the princes were bad. 1 star. 1 star. Meh. Ability too situational to actually run a 3 mana 2/5. Hildnir Frostrider, 1 star. Haha, free Shaman. Is good stats, but when you draw it in the late game and you have to freeze your side of the board, suddenly not so good. Happy Ghoul, 1 star. Even though you have the chance to activate it and play 0 mana 3/3s, which is very tempting, it's actually more difficult than expected to do that. So Happy Ghoul, I originally expected to perhaps see the most play in Paladin with the True Silver. but actually in Warlock, saw a surprising amount of play initially due to Drained Soul and due to Earthen Ring Farseer and due to Siphoned Soul. And always we thought it could be in Priest, but it turns out that Happy Ghoul has made its way into a subsection of Rizaka's Priest as a one of. It makes sense since Priests can always heal themselves, but they also have Spirit Lash, and they have Greater Healing Potion, which is also a surprise. So Happy Ghoul gets a 3-star ranking right now, and I believe in the future there will be less importance put on a 3-3, and I'll rate it down to a 2-star in the future. Drakari Enchanter. 1 star. While the effect is strong and brand Bronzebeardish,
1 star.
It
no
has helped create a lot of good meme video setups though in Wild.
Combined with this card.
Death Speaker, 1 star. While it's not quite Divine Shield and it has its trade-offs, benefits trade-offs with it, it's still not quite good enough. 1 star, pretty much exactly that. 3 mana, 2/4, give a friendly minion Divine Shield wasn't good enough in any deck. Wicked Skeleton, 1 star because in order for it to be good, 4 minions have to die on that turn. 4 mana, 1/1, which seems difficult. Taking Abomination, a 1 star. Meme card of the set. I will mention that a 4 mana 5/6 is pretty good. Taking Abomination. Serenite Chain Gang. 3 stars. I think this card could single-handedly bring buff Paladin back up to speed. And it's also good with a number of other buffs like the Warrior buff, Bolster effect, but mainly Paladin, I'd say. Now, and Shaman Evolve has a chance of using this too. So I'll rate Serenite Chain Gang a 4 star in the current meta. It is a 2 of in many of the Token Shaman decks, which is a tier 2 deck, but not all of them. Some of them it's a 1 copy of, and some of them it's a 0 copy of. I'm writing it up to a 4-star card because it also has some uses in other decks, such as Taunt Druid, which is quickly disappearing from the meta, as well as Buffeted in some versions of. Moving forward, I think this card is a 3-star card. It loses a bit of its utility against aggressive decks, as aggressive decks will not be there as often, and Token Shaman has a not as good matchup against Rizaka's, as well as Dead Man's Hand decks. Rattling Rascal, 2 stars. Has a chance of being played in 1 of 2 decks. A single target Evolve Shaman. But more practical is perhaps you simply play it in an aggressive deck. So 1 star, it didn't see play in an aggressive deck, and also Serenite Chain Gang ousted it from being in the Evolve Shaman. Basically, Serenite was better. And also, basically because of that, Rattling Rascal didn't have the room. Prince Valinar. Prince Valinar is actually a good card if you can get the 4 mana 4/4 off. I'm gonna give it a 1-star card. Not enough decks can actually get this off. And easiest deck for Prince Valinar to fit in currently, which is a control deck which does want the taunt and the lifesteal, is the Rogue Miracle deck if you cut shares in, as well as Lillian Voss. I'm going to rate this card a low 3-star. Because while I can't point exactly to any tier 3 deck that does run it, there are many tier 4 decks that run this card. It did see a lot of experimentation, so certainly it deserves at least a 2, and it's still seeing experimentation. People are looking to put this into Warlock, into Rogue. In the future, I think this will be a 2-star card as a card that continues to see a little bit of experimentation, but will die down. Partly because of the less aggro focus. Phantom Freebooter, I think that the card is ultimately not going to take the place of Naga Corsair, so I rated it a 1-star card. So Warrior actually ended up playing this in a few of their Pirate Warrior variations, few enough that I'm going to rate it a 3-star card. After the rotation, with no Fiery War Axe, I expect this to fall down to a 1-star card. Night Howler is blatantly understated and is a 1-star card. Haha, Self-Damage Warrior. The Meat Wagon, also known as the Meme Wagon, can get a 5-cost card in Validated Doomsayer. It can even get Doomsayer itself, but 1-star card for not really that much payoff for having to put Validated Doomsayer in your deck. We saw the Meme Wagon be pretty good in the Tavern Brawl pre-constructed decks when you're up against pre-constructed decks, but ultimately the power level of decks is too high for the Meme Wagon to work, so 1-star now and later. Keening Banshee, 1-star card, not because of the drawback, but because a 4 mana 5/5 isn't strong enough to be played. I'll reiterate that it is a 1-star card because a 4 mana 5/5 isn't good enough. P.S. the drawback isn't that severe. Grim Necromancer, 1-star, it's inferior to Serenite Chain Gang, 1-star card. Grave Shambler, 1-star,
4 mana, 5/5, not that great. Can be bigger with the rogue self-destroying the weapons, but I don't see that deck working. Death Axe Punisher, 1 star. There are very few lifesteal cards in this set, and not enough to run with Death Axe Punisher.
Yep, 1 star.
Corpse Taker, 5 stars. This is a card that could bring Control Paladin to greatness. I think you can consistently give this Taunt, Divine Shield, and Lifesteal in exactly Paladin. It turns out that this is, in fact, exactly a Paladin card. And with the amount of Paladins playing it, it is a 5-star card. Perhaps the biggest surprise is that it's such a good card, or the potential with Wind Fury is so good that players started teching in 1 Stormwatcher into their decks just to activate the Wind Fury portion of the card. And it's mostly run in the decks which run Murlocs, as opposed to the Control Paladin, which I thought it would. With a diminishing amount of Pirate Warriors and quite probably Token Druid, the lifesteal is going to be quite a bit less important. So moving forward, I think that Corpse Taker will drop down to a 3-star card, as a card that's occasionally run as a tech. Arthas! Cute, but 1-star card. Turns out a 4 mana 2/2, which doesn't do anything immediately, is pretty bad in any meta where there is some amount of aggro. Admittedly, pretty good late game deck. Exactly, 1-star card, but I did mention that it's potentially good in late game decks, but even then it's still too slow. Also, haha, Potion of Madness. Venomancer, classic 1-star pack filler card. 5 mana 2/5. Atrociously bad. Tomb Lurker, 1-star card, 5 mana 5/3, which draws you a card, isn't quite good enough. Even if
too
you
slow,
can
1 star.
selectively get that card. Sunborn Valkyr, 1 star. It appears that Defender of Argus might have this outclassed. I like Angels, but yeah, 1 star. Just didn't see play. Not quite good enough. Skelemancer, hesitantly a 1-star card. While I fully admit the awesomeness that happens when you Skelemancer and then you follow it up with a Spike Ridge Steed on the Skelemancer, I don't believe it's good enough to run only 2 enablers for the Skelemancer in a deck, because if you don't get the enabler, it is a 5 mana 2/2. It does work as an AoE disincentive, or you can even play it into Doomsayer and then pay 5 mana for an 8/8, and that's pretty good. But that never really happened with a card like Devilsaur Egg either, and that costs 3 mana. A 3-star card because it was run in a variant of the mid-range Paladin, which had 2 Spike Ridge Steed and 2 Bone Mare. Now, I think that is fading in terms of popularity, mostly because it just hurts way too much to get Spellbreakered in that case, and a lot of decks are teching in Spellbreaker. Additionally, there's just so many times where 5 mana 2/2 and you don't have one of those cards happen, and it's pretty bad. So given enough time, this card would probably have fallen into the 2-star category, where it was tried pretty heavily and then found to not be good enough. I believe in the future, this will be a 2-star card, as the new meta will try it out and it will not be good enough. Corpse Raiser, 1-star card. Way too optimistic.
Yeah, 1 star, too slow.
It is Ancestral Spirit for any class with an additional 3/3, but Ancestral Spirit's big draw was that you could cast it on the cheap on a big minion. Cobalt Scalebane, 2 stars. The 2nd star not only comes from it being a potential card in Dragon Priest, and no, I don't think Dragon Priest will actually be a good deck, but it also has some outside synergy in just any aggressive deck, which can keep a board early on and then play this down. So this card actually has seen play in a variety of decks, and also developing news. In Murloc Paladin, this is starting to go into the 5 slot. You're hearing this actually pretty early. It's just seeing a lot of show-off play in the HCT prelims in America right now. So not only in Murloc Paladin, but also across a variety of decks, including like mid-range Rogue and Hunter, in Zoo. Given that none of those is really too much in the spotlight, I will rate this in the current meta 4-star card. Going forward, I think it'll find its place somewhere. Not sure where yet, but I think 4 stars is about the right place for it later on. Bloodworm, 1-star card. That's a 5 mana.
Yeah, 5 mana 4/4.
It has lifesteal, and lifesteal is better on bigger cards. And you could buff it, you could fetch it with the Curator, but all that I think is ultimately futile when you ultimately boil down to a 5 mana 4/4. Spellweaver, 1 star. Boy, is that super worth
6 mana 4/4.
Skulking Geist, 2 stars. It is pretty much the card if you really hate Druid to play, Jade Druid is only one deck, so I'm not entirely sure that Skulking Geist will even see that much play as a tech card, which is why I rated it 2 stars instead of the... Oh boy, was I wrong here. It's a lot of play as a tech card. In fact, I think that this is one of the few tech cards that will get a 5-star rating in the current meta. It's actually 5 stars in the current meta because literally a lot of decks would just lose to Jade Druid if they didn't play this card. Even after the nerf of Innervate and Spreading Plague, I think Jade Druid will still be around, and therefore many of the control decks will have to run one copy of it if they hope to beat Jade Druid. Praise Skulking Geist! Nubian Unraveler, 1 star, because some decks really don't care about your 6 mana 5/5. So I've actually seen this card around in a variety of decks, mostly in minion-based decks such as hand buff decks, as well as tempo-y decks such as mid-range rogue decks. And I believe that justifies a 2-star rating on this card. The big problem is I'm still not entirely certain on if it'll even be good with that much less aggro. So I'll continue to give it a 2-star rating, or maybe I'll be surprised and we'll see a lot of play. This could be a surprise moving forward. Necrotic Geist, 1 star. It's worse than Kel'Thuzad, and Kel'Thuzad didn't necessarily see play.
Yep, 1 star.
Furnace Fire Colossus, 1 star, even though I respect the potential power level of a 6 mana 8/14 after eating Doomhammer, or 11
Yep,
8
1 star.
after eating an Arcanite Reaper. Bone Drake, 1 star. I looked into whether or not Dragon Priest would run in this card, and I think it is too slow for Dragon Priest. Bone Drake actually ends up being a 2-star card because it did see a light amount of play. There's Dragon Priest out there, which don't always run this card. There's an interesting variation of Rozaka's Priest, which runs dragons, so it would run 1 copy of Bone Drake. And it was run in N'Zoth Warriors sometimes. I think given that the meta will slow down, once again Bone Drake will see a little bit of light experimentation before ultimately proving to still be too slow, so I rate it 2 stars in the future as well. Bone Mare, 4 stars. There's a reason why I'm not calling it a 5-star. Super insane.
What? I rated it 4.
That's because I
okay.
think that it's surprisingly difficult for any non-Paladin deck to have a 6-drop available consistently. Paladin already has Spike Ridge Steed. You don't really need Bone Mare as well. There's a certain number of cards that is too many cards reliant on you having a board. So the other class that can easily summon things for Bone Mare to get would be the Shaman. Maybe even Elemental Shaman. You play the Firefly, you Bone Mare, that's a 8 mana play, pretty strong. The question will then only be whether or not Shaman is a good enough class, and I say this mid-range Shaman, which is currently a tier 4 deck in the pre-Frozen Throne meta, maybe it gets pushed up, and then I kind of gave it a 4-star because some other deck out there will probably make use of it. Some sort of board control deck, which can reliably on turn 6 stick a board so that on turn 7 you play the Bone Mare. This card ends up being actually comparable to Dr. Boom after all. Dr. Boom is still overall better because it doesn't require you to have a minion on the board, but a lot of decks run this between Paladin, the good old mid-range Paladin. You see it all the time. People have to play around the Steed and the Bone Mare, but people continue to clear your stuff now. Token Druid runs it sometimes. Shaman runs it sometimes. Mid-range aggro rogue runs it sometimes. You've got Secret Mage running it. You've got Hunter running it. You've got some Dragon Priest running it. It's pretty widespread, and it's a 5-star card, and will be a 5-star card going forward as well. And finally, the big Lich King is the grand finale, which I will rate 5 stars. Seems to be a good go-to vanilla card to put into a lot of control decks. Very fast, immediately impacts the board because an 8 mana 8/8 with Taunt draws you that Ysera card every turn. Death Knight card is roughly equivalent in value to a Ysera card. It's kind of Ysera that costs 1 fewer and is faster. Pretty good card. Yep, turns out this is a 5-star card, and a lot of people thought that it might be overhyped and overrated, but maybe it was a little bit. You don't stick it into every control deck, but you've got control Warlock, you've got some mid-range Paladins, some control Paladins, some Rozaka's Priests running it, some control Mages running it, some Jade Druids running it, but where it's seen the most by far is Big Priest. Great target to resurrect.
since you get the immediate Death Knight card to your hand as well as an 8-mana 8/8 taunt. So really, really powerful. And now I'm going to do a very exciting rapid fire wrap-up of all the cards, where you're going to see all the cards and the star rating super fast. Ultimate Infestation, 5 star. 5 stars currently, 5 stars in the future. Hadronox, 1 star. 1 star now and in the future. Malfurion the Pestilent, 5 stars. 5 stars now and in the future. Spreading Plague, 4 stars. 5 stars now, 3 stars in the upcoming version of it in the new meta. Webweave, 1 star. 1 star now, 1 star in the future. Fate Spinner, 1 star. 1 star now, 1 star in the future. Strong Shell Scavenger, 1 star. 3 stars now, 2 stars in the future. Nash, 1 star. 1 star now, 1 star in the future. Crypt Lord, 3 stars. 5 stars now and 5 stars in the future. Into the Swarm, 4 stars. 5 stars now and 5 in the future. Abominable Bowman, 1 star. 1 star now and in the future. Deathstalker Rexar, 3 stars. 4 stars now, 5 stars in the future. Corpse Widow, 3 stars. 1 star now, 1 in the future. Exploding Bloatbat, 1 star. 1 star now, 1 in the future. Professor Putricide, 1 star. 1 star now, 1 in the future. Bear Shark, 1 star. 3 stars now, 4 in the future. Stitch Tracker, 1 star. 3 stars now, and 3 in the future. Toxic Arrow, 1 star. 1 star now and 1 in the future. Venom Strike Trap, 1 star. 1 star now and in the future. Play Dead, 1 star. 1 star now and in the future. Frostlich Jaina, 2 star. And 2 stars now and 2 stars in the future. Glacial Mysteries, 1 star. 1 star now and in the future. Syndragosa, 1 star. 1 star now and in the future. Ghastly Conjurer, 4 stars. 3 stars now and 2 in the future. Frozen Clone, 3 stars. 1 star now and 1 in the future. Simulacrum, 2 stars. 3 stars now and 3 in the future. Cold Wraith, 1 star. 1 star now and in the future. Doomed Apprentice, 1 star. 1 star now and in the future. Ice Walker, 1 star. 1 star now and later. 1 star. And this one's 2 stars now and later as well. Uther of the Ebon Blade, 5 stars. 2 stars now and also later. Blackguard, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Bolvar Fireblood, 4 stars. 1 star now and later. Light Sorrow, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Arrogant Crusader, 3 stars. 1 star now and later. Chillblade Champion, 3 stars. 3 stars now, 2 stars later. Howling Commander, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Dark Conviction, 3 stars. 1 star now and later. Desperate Stand, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Righteous Protector, 5 stars. 5 stars now, 4 stars later. Obsidian Statue, 2 stars. 5 stars now, 5 in the future. Shadow Reaper Anduin, 4 stars. 5 stars now and later. Archbishop Benedictus, 1 star. 2 stars now and later. Embrace Darkness, 3 stars. 1 star now and later. Shadow Essence, 1 star. 5 stars now and later. Devour Mind, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Eternal Servitude, 3 stars. 5 stars, 1 now and later. Acolyte of Agony, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Spirit Lash, 1 star. 4 stars now and later. Shadow Ascendant, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Valir the Hollow, 5 stars. 4 stars now, 3 stars later. Spectral Pillager, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Bone Baron, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Lillian Voss, 3 stars. 1 star now and later. Runeforge Haunter, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Shadowblade, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Plague Scientist, 1 star. 3 stars now, 4 stars later. Leeching Poison, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Roll the Bones, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Doomerang, 1 star. 1 star now and later. No Fury Giant, 2 star. 1 star now and later. Morabi, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Thrall Deathseer, 1 star. 4 stars now and later. Voodoo Hexer, 2 star. 1 star now and later. Avalanche, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Icebreaker, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Drakari Defender, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Cryostasis, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Ice Fishing, 2 star. 1 star now and later. Burlock, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Haha, free Shaman. Blood Reaver Gul'dan, 1 star. 4 stars now and later. Blood Queen Lanethel, 1 star. 1 star now and later. Despicable Dreadlord, 2 stars. 4 stars now, 5 stars later. Treachery,
1 star.
1 star now and later.
Unwilling Sacrifice, 1 star.
1 star now and later.
Howl Fiend, 1 star.
1 star now and later.
Defile, 1 star.
4 stars now, 4 stars later.
Drain Soul, 1 star.
3 stars now, 4 stars later.
Gnome Ferratu, 1 star.
Really big surprise, 2 stars now, 3 stars later.
Sanguine Reveler, 1 star.
1 star now and later.
Scourge Lord Garrosh, 4 stars.
5 stars now, 5 later. And surprisingly for the reason of Fatigue Warrior only.
Rotface, 2 stars.
1 star now and later.
Death Revenant, 1 star.
1 star now and later.
Bloodrazor, 5 stars.
5 stars now and later.
Mountain Fire Armor, 1 star.
2 stars now, 1 star later.
Valkyrie Soulclaimer, 1 star.
1 star now and later.
Bring It On, 1 star.
Huge surprise, 4 stars now, 5 stars later.
Dead Man's Hand, 1 star.
Huge surprise, 4 stars now, 5 stars later.
Forge of Souls, 5 stars.
2 stars now, 1 star later.
And Animated Berserker, 1 star.
1 star now and later.
The Lich King, 5 stars.
5 stars now and later.
Bone Mare, 4 stars.
5 stars now and later.
Bone Drake, 1 star.
2 stars now and later.
Furnace Fire Colossus, 1 star.
1 star now and later.
Necrotic Geist, 1 star.
Still 1 star.
Nubian Unraveler, 1 star.
2 stars now and later.
Skulking Geist, 2 stars.
5 stars now and later. We'll still have to keep those Jade Druids in check.
Spellweaver, 1 star.
Still 1.
Bloodworm, 1 star.
Still 1.
Cobalt Scalebane, 2 stars.
4 stars now and later.
Corpse Razor, 1 star.
Still 1.
Skelemancer, 1 star.
3 stars now and 2 stars later.
Sunborn Valkyr, 1 star.
Still
Tomb
1.
Lurker, 1 star.
Still 1.
Venomancer, 1 star.
Still 1.
Arphis, 1 star.
Still 1.
Corpse Taker, 5 stars.
5 stars now, 3 stars later.
Death Axe Punisher, 1 star.
Still
Brave
1.
Shambler, 1 star.
Still 1.
Grim Necromancer, 1 star.
Still 1.
Keening Banshee, 1 star.
Still 1.
Meat Wagon, 1 star.
Still 1.
Night Howler, 1 star.
Still 1.
Phantom Freebooter, 1 star.
3 stars now, but 1 star later.
Prince Velenar, 1 star.
2 stars now and 2 stars later.
Rattling Rascal, 2 stars.
1 star now and later.
Serenite Chain Gang, 3 stars.
Yeah, actually 3 stars now and 3 stars later.
Ticking Abomination, 1 star.
Still 1.
Wicked Skeleton, 1 star.
Still 1.
Death Speaker, 1 star.
Still 1.
Drakari Enchanter, 1 star.
Still 1.
Happy Ghoul, 1 star.
3 stars now and 2 later.
Hildnir Frostrider, 1 star.
Still 1.
Mindbreaker, 1 star.
Still 1.
Prince Taldaram, 1 star.
Lol Taldaram.
Shallow Gravedigger, 1 star.
1 star.
Frygul, 1 star.
Still 1.
Fallen Sun Cleric, 1 star.
Still 1.
Prince Keleseth, 2 stars.
3 stars now and 4 later on.
Tainted Zealot, 1 star.
3 stars now, drops to 2 later.
Tuskar Fisherman, 1 star.
Still 1.
Acris Veteran, 5 stars.
2 stars now and 2 stars later.
Dead Scale Knight, 1 star.
Still 1.
Wretched Tiller, 1 star.
Still 1.
And Snow Flipper Penguin, regrettably 1 star.
Regrettably, still 1 star. Actually saw a little bit of play in Razaka's Priest. In the super initial experimentation phase, where you got to 1 turn kill. With the help of this friendly penguin though.
So I have rated a higher than above average amount of cards, 1 star cards. But there is the chance for spectacular failure.
So here's actually the really good news about Knights of the Frozen Throne. A decent amount of the 1 star cards, became 2 stars, and I'll have to be sure to remember that to rate more 2 stars versus 1 stars. But not just that, because a 2 star card still eventually doesn't see play. Like, a good amount of surprises are out there, including Gnome Ferratu. Like, that looks like a newbie trap, but because of the way the meta shapes out, especially if a control meta comes about, Gnome Ferratu could be good. Probably the biggest surprises for 1 stars are Dead Man's Hand and Bring It On. A lot of the Warlock cards, I wasn't going to be surprised if they actually ended up being good, so not really surprised, even though I rated those a 1 star. A lot of the Knights of the Frozen Throne cards ended up being interesting enough that I tried out. Just because I wasn't sure. So, cool stuff.